Welcome back again to another episode. But today we're going to review the Leblanc LL Clarinets. And here I have actually my set, a LL B flat and LL Clarinet. So the question is the vintage Leblanc LL the best vintage cylindrical bore clarinet available in the used marketplace? And it is the last cylindrical bore clarinet that they made, and it had the longest manufacturing of any clarinet model that they had. And truthfully, to me, it definitely was the best Leblanc clarinet out there for the era of 1990 and before. Later on, though, Tom Ridenour came to Leblanc, and he helped bring about the concerto line of clarinets. And to me, if you ever get to try one of those clarinets, try it. It's a polycylindrical bore. It is a lovely clarinet to play, but we're not talking about the concerto today. We'll talk about it another day. The Leblanc LLs. Let's talk about the cylindrical bore and how it became. Basically, long after Selmer, Paris, and Buffet abandoned cylindrical bore upper joints, Leblanc continued on improving their models. Okay, we know German older system clarinets are still cylindrical for most of the length of the clarinet with a flare for the bell. Basically, usually when we talk about clarinets, like polycylindrical bore and even cylindrical bore, we're talking about the upper joint. The lower joint starts flaring, starting at the connection at the joint, flaring until it gets to the bell and really flares out. A German clarinet is really cylindrical all the way down to here before it starts flaring out. Quite interesting. I remember having Adler in here before, and it was, wonderful to look at. Anyways, those are different. And technology starting in the 1950s really has moved on. In the 1920s, Henry Selmer Paris clarinets were basically large bore and use a bit of undercutting. I'll be having a different episode about overcutting and undercutting, so stay tuned. But Henry Selmer produced these until about 1960, when the last generation of the center tone, they started using a tapered bore. And I have an episode about the center tone. You can go take a look at that. Buffet in the early 1900s also made large bore clarinets and insisted on heavy undercutting, which didn't make them as popular to the players as the Selmer clarinets. Henry Selmer and especially Alexander Selmer really evolved their design back then. In brief, Alexander seemed to be the really knowledgeable one. He had his own line of clarinets until Henry needed help. He actually started Selmer USA before handing it off to George Bundy. He went back to France to help Henry Selmer clarinets get corrected to dominate at the time. The whole problem with the clarinet's tuning is its ability or inability of overblowing a true 12th. This varies with bore size, and bore size will also dictate the maximum amount of undercutting possible. The smaller the bore, the more undercutting you can use, and undercutting has an identifiable effect on the tonal color. And of course, the speaker hole has two functions as a tone hole for the throat B flat and with the register, which makes it a compromise. It seems Leblanc uses cylindrical bore and cylindrical tone holes with minor undercutting. They also went other routes of trying to correct for acoustics with the Steuben's, Loomis models. Then we saw similar attempts with Selmer Paris and the Mazzo and Marchi models. And in the 1970s, Leblanc went crazy with everything under the sun with their L7, L70, L27, L200, L300, LX2000 models. They had a conical bore, reverse conical bore, polycylindrical bore, basically throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, at the market until they got Tom to clean things up and focus on market's demands, which included the concerto and opus models, which I do believe was polycylindrical bore. But back to the LL. We take a close look at the LL here. What we'll notice right away is the trill key keywork. Very undulating here. We have the tone pad cups, which are straight, flush to the body. This makes for an easy design. On a lot of clarinets, the pad cups are kind of angled a bit. And of course, this bridges over the previous keywork. Originally, in the earlier models, you'll see this right here. You have a flat metal trill key guide. Later on, it becomes cylindrical. On the emblem, Up here, you see an LL, two L's facing each other, looking like an A or a hat. And this is a nice silver plated keywork too. An adjuster built into the middle and not attached to the top. You'll see what's really interesting on the lower joint. You'll see on Buffet clarinets, these two keys are actually on one rod and hinges right here. They put this separate so they can control the feel of this and try to make it more consistent with the feel of all the other keywork. It's also easier to adjust on its own, even though it's kind of crammed in there. Well, Leblanc made many varieties of this clarinet. This is standard bohm. They had enhanced bohm with a variety of enhanced bohms of whether other speaker keys here or the C sharp, G sharp, or the alternate keys here, or even a full bohm. They also had a plateau clarinet. A plateau clarinet is where there are no holes on it. It's all covered. Good for training, good for people with finger issues or any type of disability related to the fingers and stuff. But really, the Leblanc LL was a very simple design clarinet, very robust though. Keeping things simple made it easier to work on. And really, Leblanc had some of the best keywork of the time. Very nice keywork, very nice to work on, very nice to play, a very good instrument to play. But of course, times moved on, the technology moved on. Cylindrical bore clarinets really are old technology per se. You know, and Leblanc really had to change their ways. They kind of were never really good at marketing. They were always kind of like behind the times, it seems. And Leblanc of old is no longer in existence anymore. And the last iteration of them had Beckham actually helping improve the clarinets a bit. You may remember seeing Leblanc clarinets with Beckham bells and barrels. Of course, Beckham went on to continue making full clarinets in his Canadian business. And he has his own custom professional and student clarinets nowadays. Anyways, if you ever get a chance with the Leblanc LL, keep in mind, if you're looking for a cylindrical bore clarinet, this all started with the original Symphony and Classic models. The Symphony 3 is the best of that generation, but really the Leblanc LL, if you want a cylindrical bore clarinet, the Leblanc LL is the one to get. There's also the dynamic large bore cylindrical bore clarinets, which is an option, Pete Fountain model also. But this one is the really best of both worlds. Very easy to play, very easy to tune and blend in. So Leblanc LL really is the best of that generation of clarinets from Leblanc. And I think, well, Sommer and Buffet kind of dropped cylindrical bore clarinets in the 50s, and his Leblanc really is the best in that era. But of course, as I mentioned, if you ever get a chance to play an LL and then a concerto, you're going to be like, why am I playing this? I mean, the technology really has progressed. And how is it compared to an R13? Well, once again, R13 is polycylindrical bore. And R13 has this ping and tonal color to it that you just can't get with a cylindrical bore clarinet. And I'll be going more about that in a different episode about bore design, tonal design, over and undercutting, and we'll learn a lot more then. But if you ever want to look at the vintage LeBlancs, I would definitely get the LL over any Symphony, any Classic, even the Dynamic. I really like the LL over the Dynamics. But they're all really similar. But for flexibility, ease of playing, ease of dynamics, the LL really covers all the bases. Would I pick it over an R13? Well, if I was playing in a orchestra setting, no, I wouldn't. If I was playing in a small quartet, sextet, I could play the LeBlanc, no problem. Anyways, I hope that helps learning more about the LeBlanc LL and really about the cylindrical bore aspect of it. and some about the keywork of it. It really has some really nice keywork. And we hope to see you again soon. Click like, subscribe, and have a good evening.